All right, I am going to start up then. Michael, can you tell me, can you see on the screen right now the class schedule that I've been going over?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. So just so you know, didn't get a lot done this weekend. I'm not going to blame the Super Bowl. I'm not going to blame anybody but me. But I started grading your stuff, but it'll be out there. It'll be graded. Everything will be graded by Wednesday. And I'm going to try to see if I can get some grading done tonight. All right. But what was due yesterday was the homework and labs for chapters 8 and 9. I believe there really weren't any labs. I think they were just homeworks or vice versa. It was one or the other. All right. Next weekend, so a week from yesterday, the chapter 10 and 11 written tests, homeworks, and labs will be due. We'll talk about those in just a bit. All right. So this week, today I'm going to go over chapter 10. And when I have go over selected problems, what I'm going to do in chapter 10 is I have sent you a file this morning, and it's for a mythical pizza place. I'm just going to go over it with you, and then tomorrow I'm going to go back and rebuild it in a better way, just so you know what's going on, and you get copies of both. So we'll do that today. We may actually even be done early today, but we'll see. And then tomorrow we'll go over chapter 11. So chapter 10, which we're going to start on in about 5 minutes, is on 5 new controls. It's about the group box, it's about radio buttons, it's about list boxes, it's about combo boxes, and they also talk about tab order and message box in more detail, etc. What I'm going to concentrate on is the stuff we have not spent much time on. All right, so we'll talk about all that in just a bit. Tomorrow, chapter 11, I have already talked to students who have taken this class already, and they laugh when we're going over chapter 11 because it's on debugging. And they're like, why didn't we go over this chapter at the beginning of the semester? It might have helped me. And maybe that's true. But I think you've reached a level of sophistication now where when we go through some of the stuff tomorrow, hopefully at least it'll make more sense. All right. And again, tomorrow, my guess is the lecture may be even shorter than today. So what I plan on doing between today and tomorrow is we'll also go through 1 or 2 of the problems that you'll have assigned to you. So again, you won't have to do those then, but just so you have some kind of an idea of what we're looking at. And you'll notice Wednesday, I've got just 1 lab day. There isn't going to be as much homework as there normally is in here. So I think 1 lab day, hopefully at least, will suffice. Thursday, as usual, we'll do a pre-test. And then on Friday, we will have the hands-on test. The only thing I'm going to say about next week right now is, as you can see, there is no class a week from today. It is President's Day, and Rankin recognizes President's Day and Veterans Day as being school holidays. So there will not be any class 1 week from today. I may or may not be online. I mean, I will be for part of the day, but since there's no scheduled class, I won't be on in Teams or anything else. Okay, so that said, unless there's any questions, I'm just going to move on and go into chapter 10. All right, so as you can see, it's called More Skills for Working with Windows, Forms, and Controls. So what are we going to talk about? Well, here's the different controls: combo boxes, list boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, and group boxes. You're going to see all of them by the time the period is over. Then next is how to use the tab order. And we've already gone over that, so I'm not really going to give you much on that. Next is how to get information you need for using a control. We'll talk about that literally for about a minute or 2. Then we'll get into how to work with multiform projects, and that's adding another form to your project. All right, and we'll go over that. And you can see it's about 10 pages or so. Then they've got how to use the message box class. Well, guess what? You've already done that. We have already gone through, basically they have not been using the message box in this book much at all. But I have given it to you, and we've used it for things like the exit button, etc., and error messages. So we won't spend much time on that, and that's good because it's only 3 or 4 pages anyway. And then we'll finish up by going over this payment application. And we'll look at that in some depth and breadth of coverage. All right. So the controls that we're going to talk about are shown on here. All right. The first set of controls are radio buttons. And you'll notice in here, we have put them in a group box, which is a container saying that basically these go together. All right. So in other words, if you choose credit card, then it's assuming that that's going to bring, make all this stuff available to you. On the other hand, if you choose bill customer, the stuff that's in here would make no sense to you. So it won't be shown. And like I said, hopefully that makes at least some sense to you. So radio buttons are for what are referred to as mutually exclusive choices. We talked a little bit about this in the last chapters. I actually showed you an example of it, just basically as a prelude to get you where you have some kind of an idea what it was about. All right. The next thing that's over there, well, I guess I should also mention again, this is a group box, and group boxes are containers. They're designed to hold things. We're going to look at all of this in just a bit. This is a list box. Depending on how you've got this set up, all right, you can either have a list box to output information, or you can actually have a list box basically not to input, but to share information. And right now you'll notice that there's only one thing in here that's checked or that's chosen, and that is Visa. Well, for the credit card type, that would make sense to allow only one of these, because you're going to pay for your credit card with either your Visa, your MasterCard, or your American Express. All right. So it is also possible, depending on how you've set your list box up and what the contents are, you can allow for multiple selections. So for instance, what if we had in here, what if this thing was for example, a travel agency, and you had here, where would you like to visit? And you had, let's just say 10 locations in here. If there were a couple of them that you cared to visit, you could highlight them both as an example. All right. Then this is a simple text box for putting in the credit card number. Then we've got 2 combo boxes. These are also referred to as drop-down lists. And again, Michael, I know with you being the one here right now, you've already seen this stuff, but we are doing it programmatically in here now for C# as opposed to the way we set this stuff up in HTML last semester. So you click in here, you select a month, and typically though, you'll have, this will be pre-populated. We'll talk about how to do that in just a bit. All right, but it'll be pre-populated, and it'll have January through December, and this will have year. And it'll probably have the current year and maybe 3 or 4 years ahead. So again, this would be January through December, and this would be like maybe 2022 through 2025. This is a checkbox, and again, it can be chosen or not chosen. What you're going to see, and what I would highly recommend, is when you've got radio buttons that are in a group like this, and you're going to see it in the program that I gave you a copy of today, that in the form load event, you set one of these radio buttons, whether there's 2 of them or whether there's 22 of them, but you set one of them on or active, it's called checked, as default. If one of them is on, then you can be assured that one of them will always be checked. But if you leave them both unchecked, it's possible the user could try to go and click OK without choosing either one. All right. So again, these are mutually exclusive choices. Only one can be chosen. This is the container for it. This is a list box to show you a bunch of choices or a bunch of different things. These are both combo boxes, drop-down lists, and this is a checkbox. And for a checkbox, the idea, again, is a checkbox can either be checked or unchecked. So imagine, and I think we did something like this last semester in the AWD1100 Web Development Technologies class, where we asked, if we set up a form for an employee, so somebody is filling out an employment form, and we say, what shifts would you like to work? All right. And we could set it up so you could only choose one for, let's say, first shift, second shift, third shift. If we did it that way, it would be radio buttons. But if we left it open to the user where they could select any of them, maybe we had first shift, second shift, third shift, doesn't matter, something like that. And then in that case, we would probably use a checkbox. So they mention that in here. They say a combo box lets the user select one option from a drop-down list. A list box selects one or more options. When there's more options, it's called a multi-select list box. When there's just one option, it's called a single select list box. All right. If more options are in here than you can show at any one time, it'll automatically add a vertical scroll bar. The radio buttons, again, it says let you select one option from a group of options, also again known as mutually exclusive options. And the group box, as mentioned there, can be used to group related controls. And the checkbox can be used typically to select or deselect something. I'm just going to keep rambling, and I'm taking for granted that if you've got a question, you're going to ask. All right. What we'll do by the end of the period is, I believe this is the one that they actually go through. We've already got it built, so I'm not going to go and take the time and effort to go back and rebuild it. All right. So one thing about working is it says there how to work with combo boxes and list boxes. And you'll notice they share a lot of things in common with one another. All right. Selected index, that's the one that you chose. If you chose the first thing that's in a list box or a combo box, the selected index is 0. So if you've got 5 things in there, they're 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you choose nothing that's in there, it's got a value of -1. All right, so that's the index. So in other words, this stuff is being stored as an array. All right, the selected item is, it says the object of the selected item. Well, typically if you're going to use the selected item, so if I chose the index, so let's say I had something in here, first shift, second shift, third shift. And let's say that I chose second shift. All right, then the index would be 1, and the object of the selected item would be that particular shift. The text would be whatever text I put in there for it. Typically, it would be something like, it would say something like second shift. All right, if you have a list box or a combo box that you allow to be formatted, or I'm sorry, if you've got a list box or a combo box that you allow to be set up as the program's running. So for instance, maybe you had a list box and that list box said, I don't know, choose your favorite colors, something like that. And you had a list box and you could choose up to 4 of your favorite colors. And once you chose those and you clicked a button or something, all right, then you could do a message box, let's just say, with those colors. If you've got sorted to true, that list of colors will automatically be in alphabetic order. And even if you add more items to the list or to the combo box, all right, they'll automatically be put into alphabetic order. Each of the things that's in a list box or that's in a combo box is referred to as an item. You've got your choice when you fill up a list box or you fill up a combo box. You can either fill up the items collection, you can fill it up in design mode, and typically there's nothing at all wrong with doing that, or you can fill it up, rather than filling it up in design mode, you can fill it up in program mode. All right, it says, can I send you the link? Sure. I did, but evidently he didn't get it, so that's okay. Let me resend this. All right, there we go. Hopefully that allows John to get in. All right, so keep going on here. Again, items is the collection of items, and items has a bunch of different things involved with it. If you want to add a new item, it's items.add. If you want to delete an item, it's items.remove, etc. We'll take a look at some of that in just a bit. Drop-down style. It says it determines whether the user can enter into the text box. In other words, it's the different form or the different way that the drop-down list looks. We'll look at that in a minute. Selection mode, as it says, that's for a list box. If it's set to 1, it's what I call those single selected list. You can also set it to multi-simple or multi-extended. Almost always there's never a reason to set it to multi-simple. With the difference between multi-simple and multi-extended is with multi-simple, whatever you choose must be in a range. In other words, if I choose 3 different things in a list box and I want numbers 1 and 3, I've got to select all 3 of them. If it's extended, they don't have to be physically connected to each other. All right, so those are the major properties. And as far as some of the events, notice select index changed. It says occurs when the user has selected a different item from a list box. So let's suppose, for example, that I wanted to, in fact, let's take a look at the program that I sent you. All right. So when we look in here, these are right here. Hopefully, can you see this, Michael? The Pablo's Pizza Palace?
Yes.
Okay. So these are radio buttons. So only one of these can be chosen. These are pizza sizes. Only one of these can be chosen. These are extra toppings. So you'll see that if I run this and I choose the special, and let's say I choose a large, and I want extra olives and extra peppers and extra onions, when I click the button to purchase, I'm going to get an error because I don't have a location chosen. So notice you must select a location. So when I click there and I'll choose Wentzville and I click, now notice what I get. The location is Wentzville, the type is special, the size is 16-inch, the toppings are olives, peppers, and onions. I added an 8% tax so you can see what the total charge would be. All right. And the reason that I just decided to show that to you right now is just so you can start hopefully trying to get some kind of an idea of what's going on in here. But technically what happened in there is every time I selected a different radio button, or every time I selected a different list box, item, etc., one of these select index changed events took place. It fired. All right. Good morning, John. Were you able to get in okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going over chapter 10 right now. I'm only a couple pages in. All right. And again, as I mentioned, I sent out to everybody a copy of this program this morning. All right. And I just ran it just to show you that right now, if I run it, you'll notice that special is chosen and extra large is chosen. But since I don't have a location chosen here in my drop-down list, I get an error message. No locale selected. You must select a location. But as soon as I come in here and I select a location, and let's just change this. So sausage, small, and we'll say we want extra sausage on it. So now we get the location, we get the type, we get the size, we get the toppings, we get the total cost. And what I was mentioning is these are radio buttons which are designed for single selection. Only one of these can be chosen. Same with these. These are checkboxes. The difference between these is, again, notice as soon as I change, boom. But in here, I can add and I can put in all of these if I want to. All right. So if I change that to pepperoni, extra large, and we'll change the location to Wentzville. Now, it says you must select a location. Well, that's on me. All right. So Wentzville, I just discovered an error in my own program, but we'll talk about it in a minute. All right. So Wentzville, special, extra large. Notice it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 6 toppings. All right, so there's the price with tax. All right, hopefully you get the idea. So what we're talking about in here is these are radio buttons for single selections. These are checkboxes. So I could have different combinations in here. I could select none, any 1, any 2, any 3, any 4, any 5, or all 6. This is a drop-down list, all right, also known as a combo box, and it's got different things in there. Now, I'm thinking about this, and I wish I would have done a better job of naming these, because if you look in here, all right, these are what? They're checkboxes. So if I come in here and I click on this and I go over, why isn't it letting me out of here? So let's see. But if I click on one of these, it's called, for example, CB pepperoni. All right. This right here, right now, I call this thing right here CB location because these are checkboxes and that's a combo box. Well, I'm going to change that right now just so you see it to DDL location. All right, it's going to screw up my program, but I'll fix it. And I'm saying DDL because it's a drop-down list. So I should have probably, I might have errors in here now. So let's see, validate the location. Yeah, it automatically changed it for me. So DDL location. All right, okay. So again, when you work with this items collection, these are some of the things that you can do. In other words, you can add an item to a list. You can insert an item. When you add an item, it typically adds it right at the end. When you do an insert, you can tell it to go wherever it is you want it to go. All right. You can remove an item from a list. All right. You can remove every item from a list by doing a clear. So you can read these things yourselves. Many of these controls share the same property. All right. So here, the example that's here, let's just jump back for a second here. As I mentioned, we're going to look at this example because I believe it's the one they give you in the book, but we're going to look at it in a little bit. This example that you can see on your screen right now shows the 5 different controls that are discussed in this chapter. The 5 new controls. Radio buttons, and radio buttons again are for mutually exclusive events. Group boxes, which are kind of a container. List boxes, all right. And drop-down lists right here, and checkboxes. The reason I went back and showed you that is take a look here. We've got the month and we've got the year. All right. Now, when we jump back over to here, notice what they're doing. They're first creating a string array with all 12 months in it. After they're doing that, they're going in and using a for each loop. They're adding each one of those months. They're adding each one of those months to that drop-down list or that combo box, whatever you want to call it, the one that has in there the months. And it makes sense to do this, all right, to set it up first. Then for the other one, now notice they put it out probably further than most people would, but they're grabbing the current year. So they're saying int year equal date time dot today dot year. As you'd probably guess, that's going to return 2022. Then they're setting the end year to 2030. So they're having everything from 2022 through 2030. So in other words, 8 years. Then they are filling up the combo box, but notice that when they fill up the combo box, the first thing they put in the months one is select a month. The first one that they put into the year one is select a year. The reason that that's important is what they're saying in there is the 0th or first element in both of those. All right, the 0th or first element in both of those is this, select a month or select a year. Why is that important? Because you know that if the user fills out all this and clicks this button right now, they're going to get an error. It's going to say something like you must select a month because the index that's in there has to be greater than 0. Because if it's 0, as it is right there, all right, you haven't selected a month. And the same thing happens for year. All right, so what we're doing is, rather than us having to come in here and manually go in and be checking for months and manually be checking for years, etc., we're setting the stuff up programmatically. All right, that's what's important about this. Okay, so this is filling that one up. This is filling that one up. All right. Then it's got here code that clears and loads the list box. And notice the first thing they're doing in that list box, that's the one that has Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. The first thing they're doing is they're clearing it. All right. And again, I know I keep going backwards to this, but it's important for you to realize if you choose customer here, bill customer, this technically should be disabled because you're not using a credit card type. So you might leave it blank, so you might just clear it and gray it out. All right, same thing with this. But if they choose bill customer, all right, if they choose something like that, then what you might do is you might either bring up a different form, which we'll look at in just a bit, or you might bring up one of those input boxes like I showed you how to set up in the last set of chapters, where you ask the user to enter in their address. Or it might even be set up that if this thing is hooked up to a database, you might have their name and their billing information into a database already. All right, so again, the idea is we're putting some sophistication into our form. And by putting in some sophistication into our form, we're at least hopefully making it easier for us to do some validation. Because the only thing that can be in this drop-down list right here is select a month or the months from January through December. The only thing that can be in this drop-down box is select a year or the years from 2022 through 2030. All right, this can still be screwed up, but we're going to be working on that in a bit also. This, if we tell them that they must choose one, hey, they must choose one. So we could come in here and we could set one as the default or whatever, but we can check in here, and if the selected index is -1, that means they haven't chosen any. So if they do click credit card and they don't choose one here, but they do put in a number and they do put in a month and they do put in a year and they click OK, we can still bring up an error that says you must choose Visa or MasterCard or American Express, for example. All right. So again, this is how we add things using that items, and the items are referred to as a collection. All right. And this is how we can basically notice it says there's the list of credit card type, selected index equals 0, which is going to default it to Visa. All right. Now, when we put these things in here, we just talked about this a couple minutes ago. If we have the LST credit card type, if it was automatically set to sorted, then even if we put them in this way, they would appear in the list box as American Express, then MasterCard, then Visa, because that would be it in alphabetic order. All right, here we're grabbing information from a text box. So if we want to know the year they chose, it's the selected index. All right, it's that year. So if it's 2022, that's going to return 1. Remember, 0 says, please enter a year. All right. If we wanted the actual year that they chose, we wouldn't choose the index, we'd choose the text. So that's supposing what we put in there is 2022, 2023, 2024, all the way through 2030. All right. Then in here, if we want to know when their thing expires and we want to be able, if we want to be able to use this as an integer, we have to cast this, because the value that goes into here, as you'd probably guess, is automatically a string value. All right, so if we want to be able to use it to do some calculations or the like, we have to cast that, and that's what they're showing here. All right, so here, notice they've got the month.items1.toString. All right, and that, I believe at least, is going to choose January. Now, did you need the toString? I don't really think you do, but you may. All right, so here's a combo box of names. So they're putting in 3 names. I know at least 2 of these people. So these are employees from Muroc. All right, and then we're adding those 3 employees to a combo box like that. Then what we're saying is we want to come in there and at the beginning, so at 0, we want to put in there Joel Muroc. So this combo box will have 4 names in it. First will be Joel Muroc, then will be Judy Taylor, then will be Ann Boehm, and then will be Kelly Slivkov. All right. If we wanted, after we do all those, so we've got all 4 of them in there. So that would be 0, 1, 2, 3. If we do a remove at 3, Kelly will now be removed. If we set the selected index to -1, now none of them are selected. All right. And they mentioned you can also use the string collection editor to load items into a combo box. What does that mean? Let's take a look. So if I come into here, and this is a collection of radio buttons. All right, it is a collection. Okay, and when I fill them up, one thing I can, in fact, let's use this one here. One thing I can use in here is you'll notice if I go over to items, it's got collection, and if I click on that, there's where I put in those items. All right, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it says choose a location: Palace West Wentzville, Palace East St. Louis, Palace South Chesterfield, Palace North Troy. All right, I could have also filled that up if I wanted to. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to come in here and just let me do this, Control X. So I'm removing them. So now if I run this program, there's nothing in there. I just removed them. Now that's why it's giving me that error. Don't worry about it. We'll fix that in just a moment. All right. And what I want to show you is what we could have done. All right. Is we could have actually come down here into our form load event, which I think I've got. Oh, maybe I don't even have it in here, but I'll put it in at the bottom. Yep, I do have it in. Good. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say this. Now, right now it's going to give me a bunch of errors, but we're going to fix that. All right. So I could have come in here and said DDL location dot, I don't think I can just say index. Selected index. I can't remember if it's like this or like this. We'll find it out in a second. Selected index 0 equals choose the location. All right, it doesn't like what I'm doing. Well, we'll fix it in a moment. Might be parens that you use in here. I don't ever do it this way, and that's why I don't know how to do it. Let's see, dot selected index 0 still doesn't like it. So it says non-invocable member cannot be used like a member. Show potential fixes. All right. DDL location. I'd like to show this to you, so I'd like to do this without screwing it up. So let's see if I can. Location dot. How about this? Dot items. Dot add. And then we'll put in here. Choose a location. All right. So let me just quickly throw all these in there. Now, if, and I know with me it's always a big if, but if I didn't screw that up, now when we run it, okay, so if I do a file, save all, and I run the program again, now there's choose a location, and there they are. Now, you might think to yourself, that's all fine and dandy. Why the heck did you even do that? Was that a waste of time? No, because what you can do with this is we could have filled this up. This is being filled up programmatically in our load event, but we could have filled it up someplace else. Maybe we were going out to a database to find out where the locations were, and we were pulling in that information. All right, so that would be another way that you could do it. Now, notice it still set the index to 0, so it set it to choose a location. And it should still work that if I don't choose a location and I click purchase, I get my error. But what I wanted to do is just to show you that there's two ways that you can do this. All right, and if you can populate it with code, which is what I just showed you right there, or you can do what I typically refer to as just you can pre-populate it by clicking on this, going over to the items collection, and putting it in like that. Now, I don't want it to look like this anymore. I want to just put in the actual values. So what I'm doing right now is kind of a pain in the butt because you have to watch me, oops. You have to watch me do this, but I think you get the idea. I'm not trying to waste your time here. I just want to show you that depending on what you're doing, there are typically, you can fill something up programmatically, which is what I just showed you, or you can fill it up in design mode, which is kind of what I'm going back to right now. All right. And that becomes important when you really start building your own applications, and you either do or you do not have that information available to you ahead of time. So I just did it like that. I'm going to do another file, save all. You'll notice in here now, all that stuff that was in here, that was all, where is it? In my, well, wherever it was in here, there, it's all gone. But when I come back in here, boom, it's all back again. All right. And again, if I don't choose something, I get my error. If I do choose something, so if I come in here and choose St. Louis, there it is. All right, so that's what I tried to show you. Like I said, right there is how to do something both programmatically and non-programmatically. Now, it mentions here in chapters 20 and 21, you'll learn techniques that can be used to load combo boxes and list boxes that are stored in a database. So we will go back to this in a later chapter, in other words. All right, checkboxes and radio buttons. Again, there are the radio buttons. When you go and you change from one radio button to another, what happens is a check change event takes place. So if this is highlighted and I click here, a check changed event takes place. If it's a checkbox, I could go back, but you get it. So if I've got a checkbox that says, do you want to be part of our mailing list? And if you check it, the check changed event happens. If you uncheck it, another one happens. With both of these, right now, I could check and I could say if credit card dot checked, or if bill customer dot checked, etc. How do I know that? Going back to the program that I provided for you, notice here's the different pizza types. So if the radio button for cheese is checked, if the radio button for sausage is checked, if the radio button for pepperoni is checked, etc. All right. So as it says, they show you code there. As they mentioned, that's code that sets the value of a radio button and a checkbox. So if you set it to true, all right, if it's a checkbox, it's checked. If it's a radio button, it's got the thing here. Now, if for some stupid reason, and don't ask me why, but let's say that I came in here and I said RDO credit card dot checked equal true. Then on the next line, I said RDO bill customer dot checked equal true. I wouldn't get an error. But two of them cannot be checked because these are mutually exclusive. So if I have more than one, the last one that's set to true will be checked. All right. So here's how you can see if something is checked. You don't even need to say the equal true. You can, but you'll notice in the example that I just gave you, I didn't say here equal true. I could have, I could have put that in. I don't get an error, but it's redundant code. It's much easier to just do it like this. All right. If you want to get the value of something, so right here, this checked property is going to return true if indeed this checkbox is checked, and it's going to return false if it's not. So as they mentioned here, to determine whether the radio button or checkbox is checked, you use the check property. When you use a group box, you typically put them into something like a group box that we haven't really gone over yet, but we will, to put them together. To add controls to a group box, we'll look at how to do that in just a bit. All right, so any radio buttons that aren't within a group box are a separate group, okay? And if you move a group box, all the controls move with it. What does that mean? Well, looking at the example that I gave you, I'm gonna copy something and then remove it right away. But I'm gonna grab this whole thing here. I'm gonna copy it to the clipboard and I'm gonna paste it back in. So there it is. All right, I'm gonna have to go and unlock this, but that's fine. All right, so why did I show you this? Well, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna remove a couple of these. So I'm clicking on here and I'm deleting. I'm clicking on here and I'm choosing delete. All right, if I want to add another one in here, let's just say that I want to add a different option. Then I come over here and I come to my toolbox and I find under my Windows Forms options, I'd find another radio button. Now, let's say I do this. I click on radio button and I click over here. Now that's a radio button that's an island into and of itself. It's not part of this. Now, if I grab this and drag it in here and then let go, now notice if I move, they all move together. It's now part of this particular group. So typically the way that you will do this is you will make your group box first and then individually drag in the radio buttons or the check boxes or whatever that you want to put in there. So I don't need this, so let me delete it. All right. And that's pretty much what they're saying in here. I don't want to sit and reread it to you. All right, tab order we've talked about. I'm not even going to really go over this, except that you know it's view tab order. And you know how to do it. All right. And they go through all of it in there. If you don't set up a tab order, if you don't, one is set up for you. So for instance, if you look at the example that I gave you here, and if I go view tab order, I've set the tab order. So notice this is 0, which makes this 0.0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. This is 1, 1.0, 1.2, etc. This is 2 with those numbers. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can't set it to this. This is something special that I'm going to talk about in just a bit. But the point is, if I did not do that, if I had not set the tab order, then the tab order is set for me based on the order in which I drag things out onto the screen. All right? Okay. And that's what they say in here again. I don't want to sit and read to you. All right, how to get the information you need for using a control. Let's talk about the hard way and let's talk about the easy way. All right, the hard way is to go out here. So you go out here and you use this particular URL that they've shown right here. Okay, right there. So if you don't even want to go to that much trouble, you can go out here to docs.microsoft.com. And let's say I wanted to know more about a radio button. So I can come out to here, type in radio button, and hit enter. Boom. And it'll give me what you think. Now that's the hard way. And what do I mean? Well, you may have discovered this yourselves. You may not have. But I'm going to go back to the program. I'm going to click on any radio button. And in my function keys that are at the top of my screen, the F1 through F12, I'm going to hit F1. All right, are you guys there? Michael, are you there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And John, you're there? Okay. What happened was I hit the F1 key while I was in Teams. And of course, that knocked me, basically knocked me out, period. All right, that was stupid on my part, but the point is, what you should be able to do when you're not in on Teams is you can highlight whatever control you want. So if I wanted about a button, I just hit the F1 key. What happens is when you download Visual Basic, the online help gets downloaded as well. All right, I wish I had just said that rather than screwing up like that. Okay, so let's continue on. All right, the next thing is how to work with multiform projects. Guess what? We've never done this before. So for instance, you'll notice, or maybe you've noticed this before, maybe you haven't. But if I go here, right now, if I go in here and I run this, okay, and I click purchase, well, I got to select a location. Let's choose Troy, and I'll just choose a bunch of these things at random. We'll make it medium and pepperoni. You can see that, boom, I get everything in here. Nothing wrong with that. It prints out okay. But what if I had a bunch more pizza types and a bunch more sizes and a bunch more toppings? Or what if I went back in and I added, I said, hey, like Pizza Hut, for example, we're not just going to sell pizzas, but we're going to sell calzones and we're going to sell wings, etc. Well, this is some pretty valuable real estate right here. So rather than showing that here, what I might want to do is when you click purchase, I might want to bring up, let's say, a message box that says, you have selected this. Is that correct? And if you say yes, then rather than showing the stuff here, I could go to another screen and show it on there. And to add another screen, I just come up to my project that's right here, and I do, so I come up here to, not to your solution, but to your project, right mouse click, choose add, and choose new item. And one of the things that should be probably at the top, or near the top, is form. You can even name it right now. So if I wanted to call this, the one right now is called FRM Pablo's Pizza Palace. I'm going to call this FRM Pizza Palace Bill. All right, and I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice it gave me a new one, and it has automatically been renamed. All right, you don't have to do it. We could have just kept it Form 1, then gone back in here again, right mouse clicked, again choose rename. But I'm just trying to show you that. All right, so that's how we can add another form onto our project. All right, let's see. So it says in previous chapters, you learned how to create applications that consist of a single form. However, most Windows apps use 2 or more forms. So that's what they're going to teach you right now. So when they say how to add a new form, guess what? I just showed it to you. All right. It says, note that a form you add from another project is typically in a different namespace. Because of that, you'll have to change the namespace. What the heck does that mean? That means that if I were to have come in here So if I come in here and I'm going to go back to this one, and if I wanted to add a form from another project, first let's look at this. So I'm going to go and view my code. And you'll notice at the top here, it says namespace Pablo's Pizza Palace. And if I bring up the one I just added, the blank one, you'll notice that it says, even though there's nothing in it yet, Pablo's Pizza Palace. But I can add an existing form. All right. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to right mouse click again and choose add. But now I'm going to choose existing item. And I'm going to go out to just to a different project. I'm not going to keep this anyway, but I'm going to go to a different project. So let's go to, I don't know, let's go. I've got another copy of this. So I've got the copy. All right. So I'm going to come to here and let's see. I'm going to change the name on this. It's just a copy. So 22. So I'm going to put in here this. All right, it says a file already exists. Do you want to replace it? Hell no. So let's see. It's in the designers. I guess I'll have to change it there too. 22. 22. This may not even work, but I think hopefully at least you're getting across what I'm trying to do here. And that is, let's see, if it does let me add it or add it eventually, what's going to happen is when we come in here and we click view code, it will not say namespace Pablo's Pizza Palace. It'll say namespace followed by whatever project solution name you brought it in from, okay? Hopefully what I just said made at least a little bit of sense. All right, now of course I got tons of errors in here because I did that, but that's all right. All right, so they do show in here how to do this. That's for a new one. It's what I showed you. All right, there's how to add an existing one. So the steps are right there. The author mentions when you rename a form, start it with FRM. We've already talked about that. We do that. All right, the code that's generated for a new form. Not much. All right. What's going to happen though by default, and remember by default means unless told otherwise. Okay, you can literally create a new form like this. So what I'm about to show you here, of course, I've got all my errors now, but let's see. Where are all those errors from? So let's see here. Pizza Palace. Okay, I'm just going to remove that form. It did let me add it, so I'm going to delete that. Hopefully, that'll get all my errors out of here. All right, good. So what if right now you see this, that I do this and it's showing me errors? Why? Oh, it's because of course it added that one to my resource name file. I'll have to remove that. But the point is this, if I come in here and I right mouse click and I choose in here on this one, okay, I can come in here and make this my startup form if I want to. All right, it's not showing it, but I should be able to do that. All right. So who cares? Well, as it says, the name you specify for the form in the add new item dialog box is used by the files in the form class, and it appears several times in the generated code. So I screwed up by adding that existing one. That's what's screwing all this up. So I'll have to fix mine. All right. Visual Studio lets you name the form when you create it. All right. Or there's other ways that you can do it. So here's renaming. We've already done this. I don't want to waste your time on it, but it is kind of important how to change the name of any event handlers for the form events. So here they're telling you how you can go back in there and change some of the internal files. Just be real leery of doing stuff like that. All right, you probably don't want to do it. This is what I wanted to show you, how to display the first form of an app. All right, so let's see if I can get this to where I can at least show you. If I run it, it's probably not going to work. But if I go in here to program.cs, this is the program that runs when my program begins. That's the program that runs. FRM, Pablo's, etc. If I wanted to change and have this blank one come up first, and it's called FRM Pizza Palace Bill, as you can see right there, all right, then all I'd have to do would be to come down to this program CS file right here and change this from this to this. And now that one would run first. All right. And that's what they mentioned in here. Again, I don't want to sit and read to you. To me, it makes much more sense to be able to try to explain it to you. And when I say explain it in pictures as opposed to words. All right, so here's the message box. But, oh, I guess they're going to talk about dialog boxes first. All right. Now, it says properties for creating custom dialog boxes. So the idea is if you come in here and you choose, all right, we run the program and you choose the option for something and it brings this up, you've got control over the size of this. All right. So as it says, if you set it to fixed dialog, the user can't change the size of it. If you set it to maximize, it says if it's set to true, the maximize button that's up here, you can click. You almost never want to do that because it'll make your form look real funky. In other words, when you look on here, let's see. And if I bring up the other one that I have, and if I click, if the program's running, I don't know if maximize is set to false by default or not. Of course, it's going to give me an error right now, right? Because I still got that error. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a bunch of white space all over here. It's just going to look funky, for lack of better words. All right? So you typically don't want to do that, but you can set it up. If you set up the maximize and the minimize, again, the user won't be able to control either one of those, and that's what the author is saying. All right. So this is how you can display a new dialog box. The name of the form, so this is usually going to, you can call it whatever you want, equals FRM payment, then you do a show dialog. If you say, I don't get it, you're going to see examples after we have the break. All right. So you can pass information between forms. Very important concept. All right. And they show you in here how you can do that. It's a little bit trickier than you might think that it is. All right. So tomorrow we're going to look at this in more depth and breadth of coverage. I just basically last night strung together while I was watching the Super Bowl this form that you see in here right now, but I didn't have a chance to fix it up the way I really wanted to, and I didn't have the chance to go and add another form. All right, I'm going to do that, hopefully at least tonight after I get done doing some grading. All right, so there's the tag property. You already know what that is. There's the dialog result. You can take a read on that, but again, we're going to go over this in more depth and breadth of coverage tomorrow. This is the message box. Guess what? You already know. So in other words, if I bring this up, and gosh knows we've done this enough times, but so when I come in here, if I say my exit button, all right, and I bring up that particular code, you've seen this many times, but it's important enough to show it to you. And that is this. I'm going to bring it up. Oops. Bring it up here. So there we got that. Now I'm going to come into here. And I'm going to bring it up here as well. Make this a bunch smaller here. All right. So they talk here about dialog result. You've already been using it. All right. Message box buttons. You've already been using them. Message box icon. You've already been using it. You can set a default. Typically, what we've been setting in here for the buttons have been either yes, no, or okay. But if you've got a lot of them, like yes, no, cancel, or whatever, you might want to set one up as the default, meaning if they hit enter, it's going to choose that one by default. I don't typically like to do that. I like to let the user be in charge. But when you look at the example they have, this is very similar to what we've already been doing. All right, they show a little bit different way of checking it, but it's pretty much what we've already been talking about. All right. All right, the form closing event, it's important that you realize, and I'm going to bring this up just for a second. All right, hopefully this is big enough that you can see it okay on the screen, but it's important for you to realize there's a form closing event and a form closed event. What's the difference? In the form closing event, that might be the time when you go in and you validate and you tell the user, hey, if you want to join our, something like if you want to join our email list, make sure you check that option in the bottom. On the other hand, form closed, it's already been closed. So here it is not, it is in the process of being closed. Here it's already closed. So if you wanted to check some stuff before it was officially closed, you could put checks in here. If you wanted to check something after it had been closed, you can do it in there. All right. And they talk about that in here, and they even show some programmatic examples. They talk about just the closing event, but there is a closed event also. All right. Finally, the last thing that's in here is they're going to talk about this payment program, the one that's right here. All right. We're going to take a look at that, but before we do, I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and I'm going to see if I can find another program that I created a year or so ago, because I think it may help us as far as understanding how to go from one form to the other. So as always, I've got that it's just about 9:08 in here. So I'm going to put in the old 10-minute timer. Good morning, Clayton. We're right near, we're about 2/3 of the way through the chapter, and I'm giving people their first 10-minute break. So please come back in 10 minutes and we'll pick it up there. Oh, I might have it. Are you kidding me? That would be fantastic. Copy it. Oh, you, oof. That ain't it. Okay, try it again. I'll get rid of that. Where is it? Oh, where are you? Don't want that. There. Can I take this and extract it here? No, that isn't it. So where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Oh, I bet you. Fudge fries. Where did I put that? I bet you I put that Windows. No, I did not. Alrighty. I put it here. It's gotta be here. There it is. guess I can do it from here, right? Come on, Dougie. All right. So I'll exit. Okay, take this all American map. Zip it here. Checkboxes will be there. This attachment now. I'll be right back. All right. Excuse me. I am back. And I wanted to check out one setting on here before we go on. Okay, good. It says recording has started. Double checking. Good. Okay. All right, before we go on, we're going to finish the chapter now. There's not much left, but I want you to know I sent you during the break. I sent you a program that I wrote about a year ago, and it's nothing fantastic, but I want to quickly show it to you and run it for you. All right, no, that isn't it. That's the one we're working on now. It's called All American Apps. All right. And when you look at it, I want to show this to you because it's actually two different applications, but they look exactly identical to one another. So I'm going to highlight here where it says one form, and I'm going to say set a startup project, and now I'm going to run it. All right, so you see I get a purplish looking form that comes up. Okay, I thought it was purplish looking, but it's not. Okay, a yellow form that comes up. And if I click red, the form turns red. If I click white, the form turns white. If I click blue, the form turns blue. All right, that should at least make sense to everybody. And I think you could all do this without very much trouble. And again, if I look at, get rid of this and this, I'm not sure which ones I'd opened up. So, all right. So when I open this up and I take a look at the code, come on. It's pretty simple. This says if I click the button that says red, change the background color to red. If I click white, change the background color to white. If I click blue, change it to blue. And there's my exit button, which calls this. Nothing new there. I mean, it's nothing you haven't seen before. I believe you could all go and do that yourselves very quickly. One thing I want to mention is if you look up here, notice that one of these other ones that we put in here now, we're drawing on the screen technically by changing the background color. So I need to include using system.drawing. But the bottom line is this. This is one form that I changed from yellow to red or to white or to blue. So it's one form that can take on 4 different colors. Now, let's contrast that then with the other example that's in here. In fact, I'll leave this code up here, but I'm going to bring up the one that's called multiple forms. All right, so I'm going to grab that one and I'm going to run that one. Set a startup project. Now it will be purplish, but notice you may or may not be able to tell. You're getting like a little flash there. Literally, I have got 5 different forms in here. I've got a home form, which is this one, a red form, a blue form, and a white form. So there are 4 different forms in here. So who cares? Well, what I want to show you is this isn't going to hack it anymore doing something like this because we're jumping from form to form. So you'll notice there's form blue. There's the main form. There's form red. There's form white. All right, so let's go in and just take a quick look at the code that's in here. So this is the main form. So what are we doing? Well, look, this says that if we click the red button, hide the current form. This .hide means hide the current form. Then we're creating a new instance of the red form and we're telling it to show. And similarly with white or similarly with blue. All right. So this is the way that we can come in here and we can have a multiple form project. Now, I'm going to go back in here just to show you this. All right. And notice we're telling it we want it to run. It says run new form red, white, blue V1. All right. And I'm not even sure what the heck that is, but I probably could. I don't want to screw the program up, but I probably could come over here and change this. Let's try it. I'm going to come in here and type in form red. Well, it's not recognizing that, so it's not going to let me do that. Bottom line is this, all right? When you've got a multiple form project like we now have, we need a way to go from one form to another. So if I go to the red one and I look at the code, you'll notice now there's no red button anymore. I removed it. It doesn't make any sense to go from red to red. So now it's white, blue, home. So this will get us back to the home. So notice what we're doing, the same kind of thing we did before. But we're telling it to hide the current form and now make a new instance of our main form and then show that one. All right. So you'll notice all I did here was I basically wrote it for one and I copied it to each one and I just changed where I had to change. That's why what you'll see on here is the exit button. Basically, I just took it out of here. All right. So if we go in here now to the blue form, you'll notice the same thing. All right. Now, I took this out, right? But what do I have in here? Global.exit application. What the heck does that mean? Global.exit application. Well, the first thing you'll see in here is this says using globals. All right. And now I came in here and I've got this new file that's called globalmethods.cs. What I did was I made my own file with all the code for the exit button. Why did I do that? I did it so I only had to use it to write it once, but I can use it from 4 different forms. Now, I don't expect that to make a lot of sense to you, but we're going to start using something like this in more earnest, or in more when we get into chapter 12 next week. All right. But in order to use this, I made this namespace globals. Now, in every file I want to use that in, I have to say at the top, using globals, using globals, using globals, and using globals. So take a look at this project. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or hard for you to understand. That's up to you. But if you take a little bit of time, you'll realize it's really not a difficult project. It's really not. I'm not even going to save that. All right. But what I wanted to show you before we go into the example that's in class was an example that had several forms on it, not just 2. For the rest of the chapter in here, they're going through this. So this is the payment, this customer dialogue, whatever it is. So what I'm going to do, because I've got, and you've got this available to you as well, but I'm going to come in here. Let's see, I'm going to go to here. And I'm going to come into onto my C drive, Muroc. And you've got all this stuff. So I'm going to go right to student download, which is what you have, book applications. And we're in chapter 10. And there's the payment thing. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to copy it to the desktop. All right. I'm hoping that this is the right one and the same one. And it's the one that's got 2 different forms in it, but we're going to find out. So let me bring this up. There's my customer form and my payment form. When I run this, it says you must install, crud. No, I don't want to install that. I shouldn't have to. There's something screwed up in here with my runtime file, but let's see if I can bring this up anyway. So there's the customer form. Yeah, of course. Oh, you such a, oh. Let's see if the one that I gave you is better. How's that? All right. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble if you try running any of these as well. So let's see. Download, book apps, chapter 10, payment. Well, I don't think I want to download that, but let's just see what it does. No, I don't want to download that runtime. All right. We should, opportune word being should here, I should still be able to show you this. All right, I'm going to come into here. I'm going to open up the customer form and the payment form. There we go. All right, so let's see. All right. Let's see. I'll look at that and see if I can get that fixed for next class. The point is, let's just go back to what's in the book. I thought we could run it, but it looks like we're not going to be able to. So looking back at what's in the book here. All right, two versions of the payment dialog. So what they're saying here is, look on the screen. If you come in here and you choose bill customer, all right, that should bring up this screen where it's got a listing of a bunch of customers' names that have already been pre-populated. All right, and then it's got all the payment information already. So bill customer has already been filled in, for example. And when you choose bill customer, you'll notice that the credit card type, etc., this is all grayed out, and this is all grayed out because it's been pre-selected. On the other hand, when you choose credit card, it's going to look like this, like we saw at the beginning of class. So as it says here, the customer name combo box lets the user select the customer. The select payment button displays the payment dialog box, which lets you specify whether you're being billed or whether you're paying via credit card. If you choose credit card, as it says, you must select the credit card type, a card number, and an expiration date. If you choose bill customer, those should all be disabled because that should be filled in for you. All right, so it says the user can also indicate if the billing method that's selected is the default, and that's this one right here with the checkbox. When the user clicks the OK button on the payment form, control returns to the customer form, and the payment information is displayed in the payment method label. All right, so that information, that's what they're saying, that's in here. All right, the application doesn't actually save the data because we're not working with a file yet, which isn't discussed until about Chapter 18, and we're not working with databases, which is discussed after that. So let's see. They do go through some of these properties settings, and if you didn't notice in here, there is no button for minimize and maximize, whereas here there is. So they basically set them to false there so they don't show. Then they give you the code for this. All right. And I'm not going to run through that with you. And then they give you the code for setting up the customer form. Some more of the code for the customer form. And then they give you the code for the payment form. And it's a fine application. There's literally absolutely nothing wrong with it. All right. Now, what I want to do, though, is instead of doing that, I want to show you the program that I had written. And guess what? There's a lot of things on it that can be improved, and that's what we're going to shoot for hopefully tomorrow. So when you look at this right now, when you take a look at, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff I just don't want to have open. All right, so I've got this, and I've got this. That's what I want. Okay, so here's our form. All right, and when we take a look at it, you can notice it's got a group of 4 radio buttons, a group of 4 radio buttons. It's got a group of 6 checkboxes, and it has a drop-down list here that's got about 5 options in it. Okay, so let's play computer. You'll notice in here that I have preset the pizza type to special. I have preset the size to 18-inch. Where did I do that? I did that. There's 2 places I can do it. I did it here, and if you notice, there is a property in here called checked that's set to true, right there. And for over here on this one, checked is set to true. What if I didn't want to do it there? Do I have to? No. I can come in here if I wanted to. I could have done it like this. I could have said radio button. What was it? Extra large dot checked. I could have said equal true. All right. And then radio button. Oh, what was it? It was special, I think. Special dot checked equal true. I could have done that. If I had done that, and let me do a file save, then I didn't have to set the checked property here to true. So I'm going to reset it so it's not set. So right in here, I'm going to click on this and find the checked property, and I'm just going to set it back to false. And same thing with here. I'm going to come in and with a checked property, I'm going to again set it to false. But I'm going to run the program now, and they should both be checked. All right, it says no. What? Oh, it still has that. Oh my goodness. All right. See if I can fix this. Okay. Oh, come on, Jeff. All right. Well, I was hoping it would have gotten rid of these errors, but it's not. Let's just go over the code that's in here. Okay. All right. Of course, it doesn't like this. So why doesn't it like that? Ambiguity. Yeah, of course there is. Delete. Yes. All right. But what I have done right here, okay, what I have done right here is I have done the equivalent of coming in here, checking on that radio button, going over to the properties and setting checked here to true. You can see it already changed. All right. And doing this one to check to true also. There actually is a big difference between doing it this way and doing it this way. All right, I'm going to comment both these out, but the difference is if I put it in like this, if I do it like this, if I uncomment these and then remove those that I set here, I am setting it at runtime in code. Here, I am setting it at design time in my properties window. They both achieve the same result, but they're done in two different ways. If you want your program to be more dynamic in nature, you'd want to do it by setting it in code. Sometimes you have to do it that way. Maybe you're asking the user for some information on something. All right. In fact, now that I think about this, give me a second here. All right, I'm not going to save. Like I said, literally, please give me a second. So I'm going to, let me see if I can bring this one up. This one should have no errors in it. That's why I'm doing it, bringing that one up. Although I don't like that, but let's see if it has errors or not. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, almighty. Now let's see if I've got a clean one. And if I don't, I'm just going to go on. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to waste my time or yours. All right. Oh. All right, we're just going to look at the code. So when we come in here, I've already shown you the difference between coming in here and adding this at design time and adding it at runtime. All right, so that's the first thing. This was added at runtime. That was added. Now, I should be able to go back to this right here. All right, and when you look, I could have put that same string in there. All right, from my items collection. So I could have grabbed that, choose a location. I could have grabbed that, and I could have put it in here under text. You'll notice if I do that and I hit enter, now it says choose a location. All right, I chose not to do it like that. I chose instead to leave it blank and put that in there at runtime. It's all a matter of opinion what you want to do. You'll notice that the selected index is 0, which means when we look in here at the collection right here, and I realize that's kind of hard for you to see, all right, but in here, choose a location is 0, Palace West Wentzville is 1, Palace East St. Louis is 2, Palace South Chesterfield is 3, and Palace North Troy is 4. And it's important, again, that you do realize that this is where it says choose a location. That is actually an element that's in this array that we're creating. All right. And it's important that you realize that. So let's go back to here. I did come in and I made up these prices. So a 12-inch pizza is $12.95, 14 inches, $14.95. 16 inches, $16.95, 18 inches, $18.95. Each extra topping you put on costs $1, and the tax rate is 8%. All right. Then I've got my old familiar output string in here, and I've got this total cost. All right. Now, let me just mention this to you because this is important that you hear this. This program right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, all right, as far as being a good program, it's about a 2. And what I mean is there's better ways of writing this. This is what I'm going to try to do tonight. I'm going to try to create an array called types that has these 4 values, an array called size with these 4 values, an array called toppings with these 6 values, and an array called location with the 5 values in there. Why would I want to do that? Because right now, even though all 4 of these and all 4 of these and all 6 of these and all 5 of these, even though they're all inside of a container, they're all individual items that are in that container. This is not an array in here, but I'd like to be able to treat it as an array, where that would be element 0, that would be element 1, that would be element 2, that would be element 3. Same here. If nothing was chosen in either one of these, the index would be -1. This would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the ones in here would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's what we're going to shoot for tomorrow. All right. But looking at the code now, that made me, you can start to see how these are all being treated like individual items. So let's play computer here. All right. I'm not going to go over the exit because I didn't have to change anything in there. But let's look at clearing the GUI and look at everything that had to be done in here. We had to take the radio buttons that we had in here, and I wanted to set special to true, so it was there, and I wanted to set large to true. So again, that's setting this one and this one. All right. If I wanted none set, I'd have to list all 4 of the pizza type check buttons to false and all 4 of the pizza type check buttons to false. These, I want to make sure it always starts with nothing selected, no extra toppings. So I had to set all 6 of them to false. This is the label that shows the results. This is the output string that I fill up to put into that label, and that's my total cost. All right, so as we come in here then, what do we want to do? Well, the first thing I did, and I think there's still a bug in here, but I'm saying if the cost is 0, meaning we haven't selected a cost yet, clear the GUI. So why would I do that? Let me uncomment it just to show you. All right, so boom, that's now commented out. If I run the program now, okay, it's not going to call clear GUI. Of course, since I've got the error, it won't run. But if I run it right now, since it's not going to check if I go and fill in this, so I fill in everything that's in here when I run it. Click purchase, boom, I get a price. Now I come in here, ooh, that's right, I also wanted pepperoni. So I click that and I click purchase again. It's just going to add on to the original price. All right, that's eventually what we'd want to do, but not in that way. If I'm confusing you, I apologize in advance. All right, but what I want to show you is this. So I check in here and I say, hey, I want to check if there's a valid locale. So what is that checking? That's checking to make sure that the index that's showing for that drop-down list of locations doesn't say choose a location. How do I know that? Because I come in here and I say, if it is equal to that, return false. So if there is no location selected, I show a message box and I return. If I get down to here, now I've got a location. So I add the text from that drop down. All right, I add the text from it to the thing. And remember, I changed all these to DDL. That should have been DDL right there. But okay, so we come in here and now we call select pizza type. And what's that doing? Well, now I'm checking everything that's in here. So if this radio button is checked, set the type to cheese. Else if this radio button is checked, set it to sausage. Else if this one is checked, set it to pepperoni. Else if this one is checked, set it to special. Notice there's no final else in there, and there's no final else in there because if I haven't selected anything, I don't want to, pre-choose it or whatever. All right. Then I do the same thing with the size. But since now I know a size, now I can add to my cost. So if they chose 12-inch, a small one, we're adding $12.95, medium $13.9 or $14.95, etc. Then we check our toppings, and it's very important in here. It's very important in here to have separate if statements because they're not right now. They're not connected. They're just 6 things. It's like 6 people who live in the same house that are not related. All right. So if the cheese is checked, we want to add $1 to it, and we want to add cheese to the things that we have put in there into our output string. And we do it for the other ones as well. Finally, when we come in and we display our total bill, we've been keeping up with the total cost. The total cost is correct, but we want to be able to add to the total cost the tax rate. And that's what that line in 160, the one that's in gray right or blue right here, that's what this is doing. So if our bill was $100, it's going to say 100 times 8%. So our tax will be $8. So it'll be 108 now. And then we do the label in here that's got everything in it. All right. Now, I'm not going to even ask, does that totally make sense to you? But you know what? It actually should. Because as I told you, we went through an example similar to this one before. All right. So what I want to do for the rest of the period here is 2 different things. All right. First, I want to go back again and take a quick look at a little bit of that code that I just funneled through or went through real fast in the chapter. All right. Then I want to go back in, and I also want to add or go over what your homework is going to be. But before we do that, there's one thing in here I skipped, and that's this thing. That's a picture of the pizza. To do that, I used another control that they haven't even talked about yet. You wouldn't have to do this, all right? But the control that I used, just so you know, it's called a picture box. So when you keep going down in here, there was the picture box. So I'm going to show you how I added that by just adding it in again. So I'm going to put in a picture box. There it is. I'm going to size it so it's about the same size as that one. All right. And I'm just eyeballing it. I can always change it. So in here, what I do then is I say, well, what do I want? And notice there's a property here that says image. It now says none. Well, I'm going to click on the ellipsis. I'm going to choose local resource, click import, and I want to find my project, which was called, it's on the desktop, and it's called PPP. And in here, I had pizza.jpg. I just copied it from the internet, from Google Images. Double click on it. It says that's what you're going to be adding. I click OK, and there it is. Now you can stretch this, but it won't work the way you think it will. All right. And I guess actually there we get to a point, and now it's not showing anymore. See that? It starts to show this, which looks bad. So when you go in here, you can actually go in and there are size modes. So right now it's set to normal, but if I set it to stretch image, you can see what happens. All right. Now, I don't care if you understood that or not for right now, or if you want to use that or not for right now. It's not that big a thing. But I would strongly suggest, I'm going to remove this right away, that since I sent you a working copy, that you come in here and see if underneath here you can add a brand new picture box. That's going to help you for future classes. All right. So that's it for this program for now. All right. We'll come back to it with version 2 of it tomorrow. All right. So let me do this. I don't want to save. All right. Let's go back and take a quick look at some of the code that I just kind of rammed down your throats before. So we're going to go back to the program. And here's the code for the customer form. All right. So you'll notice they have in here an is valid data. All right. And it says if the name's selected index is -1, what does that mean? You did not select a customer name. So it brings up a message box that says you must select a customer, entry error. It sets the focus back to there and it returns false. What does that mean? That means that you came in here. Where is it? Come on. And you did not select a name. Now here they've selected Mike Smith, but they're assuming that you went to the customer, you selected nothing. I don't know if it says select a customer or not. I don't care. But you didn't have a customer and you clicked save or select payment or whatever, but it does not have a customer that it can work with. So it's going to come up and it's going to give you, when you do that, it's going to come up and it's going to give you that error message. Then it checks the label for your payment. All right, and it says you must enter a payment. So in other words, they're putting all their validity checks into the same routine. I typically break them up into separate ones. When you're exiting, they're just doing a this.close. Now notice what they're doing in the form closing event. So you're about to close it. So the first thing they're checking is they're saying, hey, has the data been saved? And they're letting you know. Whoops, it says, hey, the form has unsaved data. Do you want to save it now? And it'll come up with a yes, no, cancel dialog. If you click yes, it'll first validate that what you put in there is valid. And if it is, it'll call this save data. Now, is that here? There it is. Again, what they're simulating in here is they're simulating you using a database. And if you say, I don't know what a database is, that's what the end of this class is going to be all about. All right. But it's a fairly well-written program. all right, that will come through here and check. There's only 2 customers right now, Mike Smith and Nancy Jones. So Mike Smith right now is 0 and Nancy Jones is 1. I would have added to this, just a new 0th element that would have said, please choose a customer. And then this would have been 1 and this would have been 2. I would have done it that way. They did not. All right. So then for the payment form, okay, notice how they've set this up. In the form's load event, they are putting that code in there. Okay, they are putting that code in there for the list box. So they are adding the 3 options, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. And they are defaulting the selected index to 0, which is Visa, because they did not run the sorted method. Then again, and you saw this earlier, they're creating a string array that's got 13 elements in it. Element 0 is select a month, which is nice because now January is 1, February is 2, down to December, which is 12. So that's nice. All right. And this is going to throw those into that combo box. And it's going to set the default index to 0, which is select a month. Then we come through here and we figure out the current year. We add 8 to it, and we fill up the, again, the other combo box with the current year 2022 through 8 years past that. So 2022, 2023, all the way up to 2030. And we set the selected index, or basically the default, to the current year, which is 2022. I'm sorry, we set it, to 0, so we'll set it to select the year, my error. So again, we will have in here what? We will have in here the select the year, the current year, and then 8 more years type of thing. All right, then we're calling is valid data on this. But you should be able to take a look at what is in here, and it should at least make some sense to you. And you'll notice they've got an is valid data here, and they've got an is valid data here. How can you do that? Because one is in one form, in the customer form, and the one you see on your screen is in the payment form. So what we started in here at the beginning of the semester is we were writing everything. We were doing, for example, we were doing console apps where we were throwing everything in main. Then we brought in the GUI, but we were throwing everything into our buttons, basically. Then we started doing modularization, both in our console apps and in our GUI apps. Now we're taking it even a step further, and we're saying we want to segregate some of the logic out to put it into its own form. So if we're talking about customers, they're in customer forms. If we are talking about payment, they're in payment forms. And that's what I'd like to do tomorrow, is have the main pizza form that I showed you be in the pizza form, and have the payment that we put in be in a payment form. All right, so like I said, they come through here, and this is pretty well done. Now, it's interesting because this has got an older runtime, and that was why we were getting that error. Maybe you do have to download it. I don't really know. All right. I guess I should ask Mr. Gudmus did that. All right. So let's take a look at the homework you have and the labs that you have for here. I'm going to start with the labs. All right. Now, this first lab, the one here, actually, it's the one that says 10 labs new. Don't worry about, well, I'm going to bring the other one up. I'll tell you why. This is, where is the other one? It's 10 labs P2 new. Okay. This one, it's only got 2 pages. It's called CH10_P2_new_labs. Hell of a name. Forget this one exists. We're not doing anything from here. Why? Because it says create a student class, create a student class, create a student class. We haven't talked about classes yet, so that one makes no sense. You have nothing to do from this particular assignment. All right, so forget that even exists. So let's look at the other one. All right, there are 4 problems in here. Let's look at each one in turn. The first one says create a GUI app to look up information about 5 superheroes. Program must contain information about at least 5 superheroes. Drop-down list must be populated programmatically. Drop-down must contain an option to select no superhero. When the user selects an option, display all available things. You can do all that. What you can't do, because we haven't gone over classes yet, is you can't create a superhero class. So what do you mean, Jeff? Well, I still want you to do this one, but pretend step 5 doesn't exist. All right? You will have a drop-down list. If you choose Iron Man, I want you to bring up a picture box with Iron Man's picture in it. Then I want you to have what? I want you to have different arrays. You can have if you want up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arrays. This array can be called superhero name. This array can be called superhero like. This one can be called superhero dislike. This one can be called superhero gene or superpower. And this one can be called superhero biography. And you can even add a link in here if you want on the bottom to it on Wikipedia. Now, for you 3 who are watching right now, do you understand what I'm asking you to do on that particular problem? If you don't, say something, and if you do, just hold your silence, please. All right, what I will try to do by Wednesday is one of these, maybe this one, we'll do as a class. All right, I don't know if it's going to be that one or one of the other ones. All right, now, next, they've got this jobs database. What is this? Well, this is some kind of a list box. When you click on an item here and you do that and you click search, it brings up another form that's got 5 associated URLs, in this case with either information technology or chemical engineering. I'd like you to at least try that one. All right. This one I've had people do in the past and told me it's confusing and they hate it, but they have to admit they did learn a lot from it. You can try it if you want. It will not be mandatory. You do have to do number 1 without the class, number 2, you can skip number 3, and you do number 4. It's very similar to the ones that we've done before, but now you've got 2 different fields that you can select by. All right? And either first name or last name. All right? And we may do this one as a class. Why? Because wouldn't it be better to have it like than having it like this? To have a drop-down list or have radio buttons that say first name, last name? Maybe I'll do that one for you next time. All right. In our homework, these extra exercises, notice there are 3 of them. You are not going to have any homework. You are not going to have any labs for Chapter 11 because it's on debugging. So this first one, process lunch orders. All right. It says in this exercise, you'll complete a form that accepts a lunch order from the user and calculates their total and their subtotal. So for instance, what do we have here? Well, we've got a hamburger that's $6.95. And we have 2 items that are checked that are 75 cents each. $6.95 plus $1.50 is $8.45. So that's your subtotal. All right. Your tax takes your subtotal, multiplies it by 7.75%. You get 65 cents. You add together 8.45 and 65. You get your total, which is 9.10. All right. Their prices in here might not be the most realistic, but they're fine. All right. So that's the first one. I think you can do that one without any trouble. Next, add a second form to an application. Well, it says in here, all right, to do this second form, I'll tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to write all this down, so don't worry about you writing it down. let's have you do that pizza or this one. In fact, what was 10.1? I skipped that one. All right. This has got a drop-down list where you can go from miles to kilometers, or from kilometers to miles, or from feet to miles, or from meters to feet, or from inches to centimeters, or from centimeters to inches. All right. I want you to try that one. That one's going to make you think a little bit because there's a few things in there you may or may not be leery of. Then do this one. But rather than doing a brand new one for 10.3, let's just have you have another button in here that says change tax rate. And if you click change tax rate, it'll bring up a second form that asks you to put in a tax rate. And as soon as you say okay, that new tax rate should be in here. Hopefully what I just said made sense. All right. So one last time, for the ones for chapter 10, the one page you have nothing to do. For the other page, do the superheroes, but don't create a class. Use arrays instead. All right. You might be able to even do this with one array, but it's going to be a lot of work if you do that. But if you want to try that, you can. All right. Do the job database one. Skip the clock one. Do the multi-search. So it'll be lab 4, lab 2, and lab 1. Those 3. And again, I will rewrite this down after class. Then on the homeworks, you will do all of 10.1 yourselves, all of 10.2 yourselves, but rather than doing 10.3, you will add a new sales tax form like this, but you will add a change percent button to here and have it come up. All right. Now, again, I am asking the question right now. In what I am asking you to do, does all of it make sense to you? If there are no questions, just remain silent. All right. Totally non-COVID, but I'm getting a sore throat, and it's because I'm talking too much. I don't know, I know that's what it is, and I didn't have my water before. So that's going to be it for the period today. What I hope to do with you tomorrow then is to bring up a second version of this Pizza Palace thing. Redone, it's not going to really look any different, except I want these and this, all of this stuff in here to be done using arrays. All right, so that's what we have to look forward to for tomorrow. Unless there are any questions, and I'd be glad to try to take them, I'm going to call it a period. I will let you know if you came in late. All right. Let me get rid of this and this, bring that, no, don't need this, don't need this. This is what I want. Okay, so today we went over chapter 10, plus we went over a couple of examples. We went over the original Pablo's Pizza Palace that I created, and we went over that All-American app. Tomorrow we're going to go over chapter 11, which is on debugging. All right, so we went over that, and I will go over version 2 of Pablo's Pizza Palace. Then Wednesday will be lab for the entire period. Now, tomorrow I'll probably get done even earlier than today, so I'll do a problem or two for you as a class. Any problem I do, as always, you won't be responsible for doing. All right? So we will go over those tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, I'll have exactly what assignments to do and not to do for you. Then Wednesday will be lab for you to work on those other problems. Thursday, I will create a pretest. It'll probably be fairly simplistic. I'll again give you till 9:45 to work on it, and I should be able to go over it in an hour. Friday then will be your hands-on test. 1 week from today, the 21st, there is no class because Rankin holds President's Day as a school holiday. So next week, we're going to begin going over chapter 12. Now, I'm going to tell you something here. This is not a warning. This is not a threat, but if you've gotten through the entire semester so far and you really haven't been reading the book, that's probably going to change when we get to chapter 12. I'm going to try to be as thorough as I can with the material that's in chapter 12. But that said, there's so much more in the book that I'm sure I'm going to miss something, not on purpose, but I'm going to. All right. Object-oriented programming is a brand new topic, and it's a totally different way of looking at things compared to the way we've been doing them. So I'd strongly suggest that before class next Monday, before you either watch this tape or before you come to class, you at least page through and ideally you read chapter 12. All right, because we're going to really slow it down for 12 through 16. All right, it's going to take a while to get through all of that stuff. Some of it we're going to cover in a lot of detail. Some of it we're just going to gloss over because it, at least in my humble opinion, is not that important. Then when we get done with 12 through 16, we're done with the object-oriented stuff. Then we go into two different things in 17 and 18. We first go into what's called LINQ, which stands for Line Integrated Query. And I don't even want to go into that with you right now because it'll discuss things we haven't talked about yet. I think that's 17. And then 18, we go into how you can save things to files, to physical files. And one is 17 and one is 18. I don't remember which is which. Then the end of the book, 19, 20, 21, and 22, and I believe that's it. Oh, there is some other stuff, but we're probably not going to cover that. But 19 through 22, so where are we here? I'm going to go back to page V. No, not there. The wrong one up. There we go. Here. So by the end of this week, we're through all of this and we're through all of this, which means we're halfway through the book. All right. So we're going to spend a good month, I would guess, on this, 12 through 16. Then we go, I guess, IO is first, then LINQ. LINQ is a good tie-in to databases. All right. And that'll be it. They used to have a few other chapters in the book. They took them out, and that's a good thing. So really after this, we're through about 370 pages in the book. And the book has got here, so we're almost halfway done with the book when we get through chapter 11. And that'll be the end of this week, which will put us to about day 32, which gives us, what, 48 more days. And we're going to need a lot of them for this. We're not going to spend much time at all on files. We'll spend a little bit of time on LINQ, but we'll spend almost all the time we got left between object-oriented and database. And for database, I'm going to give you a big primer that's not in the book. All right, I'm going to show you how to set up databases. We're going to talk about databases. All right, why? Just because I don't want to just jump into databases. All right, so again, I'm saying, are there any questions? If it's quiet, if it's silent, then I'm done for today. Are there any questions? All right, then it's just about 10:15. I will talk to you tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of the day.